God, throughout the Quran, He will distinguish between those things happening in time, and most of the Quran is about events that take place in the domain of time, having to do with the actual experiences of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as he encounters the resistance of his own tribe and other people, as he takes his community to Medina and all of the difficulties, trying to deal with other religious peoples and trying to dealing with desert Arabs, and it's all within time. Elsewhere in the Quran, we find out there's revelation about realities that are taking place outside of time. The most famous one is Alast. This is taking place outside of time, and I'm speaking to you this morning about Alast. Am I not your Lord? For those of you who don't know the meaning of Alast, it's in the Quran, and God is saying, am I not your Lord? Alastu bi rabbikum. And it's a shorthand for a doctrine that everyone, every single human being has been informed outside of time. And the thing that's interesting about outside of time, therefore, if we were going to some way connect it with time, it can only be happening right now. Do you understand? Something that is outside of time, if we were to apprehend it, we can only apprehend it in the now. It's a lovely idea, you see, that is always available to you because it's outside of time. You thought it was historical. It seems to be, because it seems to happen before we exist. But in fact, it never entered the domain of time. So the only way you could know it is in the present moment. So always remember that the realities outside of time, they are always within your reach. And that's what the Sufis claim. And so tonight's conversation is a continuation of the idea of hearing the epiphany, essentially. Hearing the radiance means you can see the epiphany or you could hear the epiphany. But if you say hearing the radiance, it sounds like a gimmick or something, but it's not. It really happens that way. As I said last time, as you approach Tawheed, Tawheed Haqiqi, experiential Tawheed, Iyani, the one that you experience and see directly, you realize that there's an inexplicable thing that's happening, which is that you can no longer say through what sense you have become unified. You only see that you're losing all of your boundaries, including your sensory apertures that are bringing the revelation, because once the revelation comes inside, it's hard to know. Or as they say, if you were inside of the Kaaba, what direction shall you pray to? You see? As long as you're outside of the Kaaba, you can decide which way to pray. But what if you go inside of the cube? It has a door, you can go inside. Now which direction shall you pray? You see? You cannot say anymore, because you're already inside of it. Any direction you wish, you can pray. Right? So in tonight's conversation, we are really just taking a line or two that we didn't finish last time. Pluck from your ears the cotton of illusion. Listen to the call of the One, the All-Powerful. So that's 440 in this translation of Gulshan-i-Raz. Now, as you know, I find a lot of these things sort of amusing, and I remember when I first was translating this, I thought this was very amusing that halaj means somebody who is processing cotton, and the whole idea of ghaflat, heedlessness, is that you refuse, so to speak, to listen to the call because you've plugged your ears with cotton. And if you were like halaj, you would be somebody who is combing or plucking cotton, and you would have plucked the cotton that you would put into your ears, you see? And so in this one, we have this idea, huh? Pluck from your ears the cotton of illusion. Listen to the call of the One, the all-powerful. Okay. So I will, of course, do the usual. I'm going to be reading from the Persian, and we are interested in the commentary, which will help us to understand. This, of course, is a different person who's doing the commentary. This is Muhammad Lahiji, and the very famous commentary. We're at the same verse, and he says, or we are at 441 in this manuscript. Barobar pambaye pandorat az gush ندای واحد القهار بنیوش. So, and here you have a not so common word today, beniush, so bishnavi, but from a slightly different meaning. You have in English, for example, the idea of hear, and a word very close to that is to listen. So it's possible that you could hear something but not listen to it. Agreed? And that's the distinction he's trying to make here. That you may in fact be hearing something at all times, but you're not listening to it. So, now in the commentary, he says, Yani chun ghaflat wa pandarast که مانع اطلاع بر حقیقت حال می‌گردد می‌فرماید که پنبه پندار و غفلت از گوش هوش خود بردار تا هم امروز این ندا استماع نمایی و بشنوی و بنیوشی که لمن الملك اليوم لله الواحد القهار. یعنی از آیت کریمه بسیار مهم است، نه؟ یعنی بدانی که غیر از حق هیچ موجود نیست و ملک وجود او راست و همیشه شان وحدت حقیقی تقاضای انتفاع غیر می نماید. نه آن است که یک بار چنین خواهد بود و هر که را چشم و گوش معنوی حاصل شد هرچه در قیامت ظاهر خواهد گشت امروز به نقد بیند و بشنود. So, what he's saying is, as a commentary to the verse that I read to you a couple of times, he says, since heedlessness and fantasy are what block, what prevent your becoming informed and enlightened about the reality of the states of things and about your own state. The poet, meaning Shabastari, says, pull the cotton of heedlessness from your ears, from the ear of your awareness. Pull it out so that even today or any day you will hear the sound coming. You will hear it and you will listen to it. And that is famous verse, huh? Liman al-mulkul yawma. To who belongs the domain, the kingdom, huh? On that day. To who is the king, who is the master of that day. It belongs to Allah, the one, the irresistible. In other words, should you do that, you will know that other than the true reality, the haq, there is no existent thing. And the domain of existence belongs completely to the haq, to God, huh? And always, hamisha, always the exalted level of the real unity, wahdat hakiki, it necessarily demands the annihilation and the negation of anything other than itself. It is not the case that this happens once sometime in the future. And for whoever their eyes and their ears, which are their spiritual eyes and ears, whoever attains to this, everything that becomes manifest on the day of the resurrection, that will become manifest on the day of the resurrection, they see and they hear it today, cash in their hands. Because there's a whole idea in Sufism of naqd, something borrowed, something put to the future, versus something that they have, cash, naqd, meaning it's the actuality of it. Okay? Well, that's a beautiful idea. Does anybody have a question or a observation they wish to make about this? You're just dying to ask a question, Fatima.
Surprise, surprise. I was having a hard time tracking, so please excuse my ignorance.
Yeah.
I lost you.
Yeah. So the thing is that their language is challenging, but again, so do you understand? Have you ever heard this verse before? Most of you, have you heard this verse? Liman al-mulkul yawma lillahid al-wahid al-qahar. Have you heard this verse? Yes? No? Okay, so it's a very important verse in the Quran. You will see it on Sufi tombs. If you go to Balkh, and if you go to the tomb of Parsa, you will see it on the buildings, on the Sufi. I have photographs I can show you. You will see it in all of the key Sufi texts. You see, so basically, the notion is this: the Sufis of this time period, they believe in there's only one existence. Do you not remember Ustad said you have no existence? Okay, so it's along this line. That there's a reality that is difficult for us to comprehend, but it would be like there's a garden and a field, and there's only one water, and you don't see it because you see the different plants, but in fact you should know there's only one water. See? Is there a Quranic verse for this? Have I not recited to you? There's Quran, nice, beautiful Quranic verse, huh? وَفِي الْأَرْضِ قِطَعٌ مُتَجَاوِرَةٌ وَجَنَّةٌ مِنْ أَعْنَابٍ وَزَرْعٌ وَنَخِيلٌ سِنْوَانٌ وَغَيْرِ سِنْوَانٍ يُسْقَى بِمَاءٍ وَاحِدٍ وَنُفَضِّلُ بَعْضَهَا عَلَى بَعْضٍ فِي الْأُكُلِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. You guys know this verse? Yeah, because I've recited this verse to you. The significant thing about this verse is exactly what he's saying, what I just told you. Like I said to you, you're seeing the plants, but you're not seeing the water. It's not my metaphor, it's in Quran. You see? This metaphor is in Quran. You will find it in, fascinatingly enough, in the verse of the lightning, Ra'at, you see. So if you go in about 6 lines into Ra'at, you will see this verse, okay? So again, God says, well, you have trouble understanding these damn Sufis because they're not using simple metaphors like I am using. So what is God's metaphor? He says, in the earth, there are tracts of land. There are tracts of land, jannatun, you see, and gardens. Tracts of land next to each other, and gardens of planted with grapes, with vines, with grain crops, and with palm trees, some of them with 2 stalks, some of them with single stalks. They are watered. Do you know the root? Do you know the word saki? What's saki mean?
I've heard of it.
Haru said he loved this word. And what does it mean, saki? Means to drink. Huh? You see, so the cupbearer, the saki, is the one who is pouring, but it's from a verb, and the verb here is used in the sense in this sentence he's saying, and their water. You see, their watering. It comes from, all of it comes from a single source of water. Yusqa bima'in wahidin. This is in the Quran, okay? So they are nurtured, given their water, all of them. It's a very beautiful image because these are a desert people who really treasure gardens very, very much. And the image of the lushness to come to a place like Medina or Mecca and some areas where you see it's so beautiful. Like it's easy for us because we have greenery everywhere, but there, imagine, and God is saying, I'm trying to explain to you. وَفِي الْأَرْضِ, you see, in this world, there is this image for you, you see. And he says they are all fed by the same water. And then he says, وَنُفَضِّلُ بَعْضَهَا عَلَى بَعْضٍ فِي الْأُكُلِ. And I give excellence to the fruits of this, a different measure, some above the other, for the sake of the people's nourishment. So it's even more beautiful now because we have the idea that this water is showing different sources of plants. But now he says, Inna fi dhalika la'ayatin liqaumin ya'qilun. Do you know ya'qilun, aql? So to think, to consider. He says, in this is a very important sign. He says, la ayatun. You see? It's emphasized, you see. So surely in this metaphor that I have given to you is a very profound sign for a people who will think about this. You see? Think about what? think about the fact that everything comes from one source of water, even though they appear different to your eyes, and even though the crops from them are different, and even though they have different levels of nutriment for the people, nourishment, you see. He says, whoever will consider this they are people who reflect and who use their minds to learn from God through his signs. So God's metaphors, don't you agree they're easier than Lahiji's? Okay. But Lahij, that's all he's trying to say. So the water here has to be existence. Right? Because all of these things have existence. The minute you take away the water, it turns into desert again. Agreed? So throughout the Quran, is that a theme where there's plants and then they vanish? Because God uses this metaphor many times, this image of things becoming green and being swept away. Am I right? He gives so many signs, and naturally I'm about to wander off on another tangent because there's another one, and it's I'm trying to think where it is. Oh, it's in Kahf, the cave. Now, do you guys know the story in the cave where there's a farmer, and there are two farmers, and they have land, and one has more land, and has a lot more land and a lot of crops. Abdullah Jan, do you know this story? Faisal Jan? Who knows this story? Oh, you see, if you read, you find all the stories in Quran where God says to you, I'm going to teach you through this parable. If you learn the parable, you can't forget it, because they're so simple and so beautiful, like the one I just told you about. But in this one, remember, this is the famous one where you have the sleepers of the cave. You have a lot of interesting things going on in this chapter, you see. And but one of them is a little side story that helps you to understand the stories around it. And in this one, God says there are these two farmers, and one of them has been given more land by God and has more crops, and the other farmer, he has less, but he's content, and he hears the other one says to him, look at this, what God has given to me, and consider how superior my position is to yours. Does the story ringing a bell now? So what happens is, he says, and the other man answers and says to him, have you not considered the creator of the worlds and how he gave you your existence? You see? Have you not considered that you should always refer to things as coming from God? Then he says something very interesting. So you should read Quran, you should find important statements. Throughout Quran you have the beginnings of sentence. Huwallahu ... In this one, he says, because he's trying to explain to this other farmer, he has no animosity towards him. He's just trying to explain, because the other man is headed towards the destruction. He says, Huwallahu Rabbi. Have you seen this? Yeah, this is zikr. See? So, we say, let's see, the pen, oh, it's right here. Okay, so we'll give this a go. Okay. All right. So, 11, agreed. These are all obvious ones, huh? 66, agreed. These are easy, huh? And what's here? 200. See? Re. Ba is 2. Ya, 10. Agreed? So we have 77 between these two guys. Huh? So So we have 277, 279, 289. What's 289? So, am I right? I think so. 289. Okay. We have 1, 30, 200, 8, 10, 40. Let's see what we get. Did I do that right? So we have 58, 258, 31. The Sufi believe in Quranic abjad, you see. So, because he knows all the mercy, all of it was the mercy, but it's a mercy in the story. You say, why? Is he only saying this? If he is, fine, that's all you need. But let's say you want to look at subtle indications from God about what mercy he's talking about. Tell me, what's the difference between Rahman and Rahim? What's the difference? I'm sorry?
Time. One is in the present, one is perpetual.
That's very true. That what is it that's expected in the domain of time of Rahim? What is on offer?
Mercy.
And it's a mercy that you would become qualified for, because everyone, no matter who, receives the mercy of Rahman. Is that not true? So you would say Rahman is the ultimate name. It is synonymous with Allah, is it not? But there's another mercy that is associated with Abraham, even through Abjad. Is that not true? In fact, Abraham's Abjad is Rahim. So if you look, I've already demonstrated that to you. And we are following the path of Abraham according to Quran. So what is it about? Why would God make Abraham his friend? Did God say to anyone else, you are my Khalil? So he has a remarkable relationship with God. Because even when God is furious and says he's going to destroy people, Abraham says, don't do it, don't do it. And God says, oh, I love you so much because of your gentle nature, and you therefore are my friend. You're the only one who is my friend, because I am severe and you are still gentle. Isn't that true? So the point is, there's a kind of mercy, a kind of quality to the heart that is about the exclusive reliance upon God, which is tawakkul, etc. What could better say it than this statement of his here? In all of the Quran, is there any statement that would exceed the benefit of this statement? See? Wallahu Rabbi. What's Rab versus, what's Rab? It's your Lord, and it's the one you will turn to personally. So here he's saying a remarkable thing. He's gone from, he's shown you the line of descent as another mystery here. This is sometimes taken to mean what is absolutely outside of all understanding and comprehension. This one is understood as being between what is utterly outside of comprehension and it's facing the world, on the other hand. And Rabbi is clearly facing the world. Agreed? Do you not see how valuable the metaphor is? So again, I'm trying to explain to you that you must go and look in Quran, read the stories that God has given, no matter how simplistic you think they are. If he's willing to give it as a metaphor and as an analogy, you should study those. You should teach those stories to your children, is what you should do. Don't teach them the object. Just teach them the story, okay? So you have the story, but in the story, for the adult, is a lot of messages. And so I'm giving you, I'm trying to explain to you the value of these stories. And what they tell us is, in the case coming back to Shabbos-Tari, there's a very important phrase, because God is saying to us, have you not considered what's going to happen? See? So when he says, لمن الملك اليوم, to who belongs the dominion? You see, you understand? Who is the ruler? Who has the dominion on the day, Lyoma? What day is it? Yes. I might say the day of the resurrection, because judgment implies a lot of judgment, you see. But so I like the idea of the resurrection, that yes, it's the judgment day, but I like the idea that it's the day when everything arises, you see. And he says, Lillah, what does that mean? Lillah means belong to God. So there's Allah, and if you say Lillah, it means belongs to God, yes? Lillah al-Wahid al-Qahar. What's al-Wahid? The one. What's Qahar? We don't need to say angry, because it doesn't necessarily mean that. In this case, it means irresistible. It's angry in that it will decimate everything. Yes, if you want to think of it, it is the destroyer. Have you guys heard of the Kali Yuga? You're living in it. So what's the Kali Yuga? You probably know. I bet you Fabrice knows. What's Kali Yuga?
Well, I cannot really explain it well, but it's era. There are different Hindu. I don't know if you say calendar, but
Yes.
different periods.
Yes.
And we're living in the Kali Yuga.
Yes. And Kali is the destroyer. So you see, they have the divine names also. And Kali is the destroyer, will destroy the universe. Why? Cook up another one, see? So you have the emergence. You have a life. You're born, you grow up. You should understand that you are in a cycle. You are a reflection of the cycle of emerging and rising and being destroyed at any given time. So you should not think that, for example, a miscarriage is not a life. It is a life. It has had its time. But in the normal course of events, the human being is able to grow. Part of our conversation with Fabrice today is how we can really grow over time. We can learn lessons that we would otherwise not learn, even painful lessons, but we can learn them over time. There's no comparison. You'll see that in a sense you've been reincarnated many times in this life, if you ponder who you are and who you once were. But in fact, in the normal scheme of things, we would die, and yes, we would be in the situation of somebody in front of a mirror without makeup, and probably without clothing too. So you're suddenly facing everything that you are. That's all that God is proposing in this situation. I don't know if something changed. I see. So so coming back to your question, all existence belongs to the source of existence, and that source will take it back. It is not yours. That's why they say on that day, to who belongs the dominion of that day? Well, it belongs to Allah. And what is Allah? He was right in the middle of this sentence here. Who is Allah? Yes, in this case he says, Lillahi Allah, Al-Wahid, right? The one, Al-Qahar, the irresistible. You see? So, and what he was saying in the commentary, he was saying you should not imagine what you were thinking, which is a judgment day. You should realize that all the time this call is coming to you. That's what he said in the commentary. So in other words, in other words, the only way this would happen for you is if you pull the cotton from your ears. What was the cotton? The cotton of heedlessness. What is heedlessness? It means not hearing the obvious because of preoccupation, usually. So the human being is preoccupied and doesn't realize that they are plugging what they're hearing and feeling. So the point that he's trying to make is that you should understand that you could believe in certain things in the Quran, or you could experience those things. You don't have to wait till your death or till the resurrection. You could experience them now. Why? Because they're outside of time. So if you were to step outside of time, you would suddenly hear those things.
So how does that relate to what you were saying earlier, the water in the garden, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, everything, of course, ties back.
Yes. Well, the way it relates is that God says in that earliest analogy, in that parable about the gardens, we go to the end of the sentence, and he says, this is a most valuable sign. This is a most valuable explanation, really, for a people who will consider. So the first step, what's the first step of Ustad Zare's spiritual path? What is the first step? Well, no, I'm talking about in his sevenfold path. What is the first step? I'm
Learning to love yourself.
What is it?
Talab?
Faisal. Yes, yes, talab. Seeking, and but seeking could mean a lot of things, but what does he describe it as? What does he say talab is? It requires sharp, serious thinking. Is that not true? Is that not what the verse is saying? It's saying, you're not thinking about things. And I'm trying to give you things to think about. Because if you were willing to think seriously about these things, including parables, and to take them very, very seriously to heart, meaning that they're a parable and they have an exact representation for the actuality, which you could then become eligible to understand. But you would first have to know, in a general way, and in a way that you can comprehend, you would have to know what the idea is. What is the idea? The idea is that you see many things and you identify them as separate, and you eat from them and you regard them as separate. But they are in fact from one water. And then he says, Yusqa bima'in wahidin. They are watered. They are watered by a single water. Now, your eyes, if you're reading Quran, would focus in on the word wahid, which is also in the conversation today, agreed? And you would realize God is saying to you, he's going to give you a parable if you think about it. And we ask ourselves in the parable, what are the elements? Is there any element that is precisely the divine element? And it would be the one, you see? So that's the other thing. Take careful note of the language used in these parables. So we now understand that he's explaining that all of these blessings in this case, because he's describing great blessings, but you've missed the most important blessing, which is, if you don't know that they are watered from the one water, then you are missing where they are coming from. what is their source, what is making them exist, is the symbol for existence here is the water. You see? He continues with the metaphor, and he says, وَنُفَدِلُ. So you know this word fadl. Persians often say fazl. وَنُفَدِلُ بَعْضَهَا عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Bazan. Fil ukul. Ukul means for eating. Okay? Husna is eating some fruit right now, you see. It's perfect. See, it's so delicious. And there's even, so I see her eating and I'm saying, yes, and the water has gone right into the sweetness of the fruit. Am I right? So, then he says, surely in this is a most valuable sign for a people who will reflect on it. Okay? So there's the parable. Ustad's first step in his system is called searching, by which he means something very specific. What stage does it precede? Meaning, what comes after his first step? Love. So the step that precedes love is grasping, understanding. Understanding so that your mind fills with light and makes you want to follow the path. You see? And the next step is love, because you've now turned to the source of things. You see? That's what Shabbos starts talking about here. But this is the chapter about halaj, and Shabbos Story is addressing a centuries-old, 1,000-year-old controversy, we would say, today. A big controversy involving torture, death, imprisonment, and so forth. And thousands of stories, you see.
So is he saying, take note that everything that is happening,
Yeah.
take note, and know who's behind it?
Yes, that's right. It's the divine presence that's behind it.
Yes.
You see?
But is he telling us, take note?
He's saying that you think you've taken note by reading superficially the Quran, or by thinking that you have a veritable relationship, and you should understand that you could have a much more profound relationship. So you could be eating this fruit, and you could say, Mashallah, right? You're aware of the blessing. He's not talking about, people cooking up molten lead in basements to throw their enemies into, right? He's talking about something very pleasant, which are these gardens. So there's places in the Quran where God is talking about terrible things, you see, but in this case he's talking about beautiful things. And he's saying, you think you have an appreciation of my blessings, and you do not. If you wish to have an appreciation for my blessings, you need to know where they're coming from. And he describes them in terms of words like excellence, nufadilu, I make more excellent, nufadilu bazaha ala bazan, I make more excellent some over others. Fil ukul, for the tasting. No? We agree. We taste it.
But in order to get there, you have to first go through these steps, search, go through these
Yes,
steps.
if we follow the model of the Quran, but we could relate the Quranic model to, say, for example, what our teacher has said in his book about the 7 steps, right? And talab, searching for our teacher, means searching in one's conscience, in one's mind, in the ayat. The ayat are outside of you and inside of you. And all around you, you are searching for a sign. Speaking of Abraham, since his name has come up, was he not searching? What did he search? How did his search go? Because he used logic, he used the mind, he used aql. What happened, Hedai?
He looked at the moon and he said, You're my,
Says, you're my God.
my God.
Yeah. But he changed his mind. Why?
Because it's disappears.
لا أحب الأفعلين. I don't love anything that is going to set. I was wrong. I thought this was a God. If it were a God, it would not set. Right? He plays tricks on his own tribe, huh? They go away. What does he do?
Hands off the
He breaks up all of the idols, cuts off their heads, and the tribe comes back, and he has a pretty good time with them, doesn't it? They say, "What? What happened to these idols?" And what does he say to them? He said, "The big one over here did it." He says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "The stone idol," sort of showing them that they actually know. He's proving to them that they know how foolish what they're doing is. Is that not true? So throughout, he always has a good nature. He has a sense of humor. He always is gentle, and God says, "You are the kind of friend I want, and I'm going to make you an example for everyone from now on." Does he not say that in Quran, that he's going to make Ibrahim an example? He does. He says, Ibrahim is the example for you. So here's a person who contemplates, and he finally realizes that I will not love anything that is setting, correct? And so he finds his way to God's presence this way. So first he has talab, he's not sure, but he knows, because fundamentally in his heart he knows that it's not possible that the idols could be worshipped. It's not possible. Even then the beautiful stars and moon and sun, they cannot be worshipped. Huh? So there's another example of this. This conversation with Shabbastari and the commentary is to help us understand how the Sufis are opportunists. They've been accused of being opportunists, but they are not the kind of opportunists that their enemies or detractors think. They are opportunists of symbolism. They will use any way to help you reach the destination, which is greater awareness of God. And all the Sufis, they verify the approach is based on Quran, because we are in the Islamic path. We have great love and acceptance for other paths, but we are in the Islamic Sufi path. So we explain things according to its reasoning. But a controversy may arise, such as you get a case of a person who says, "I am the true reality." Let me ask you, in the Hadith literature, did Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ever say anything like this that you know of?
yes.
Yes, tell me.
When you see me,
Man rani kaman ra al-haq. Whoever has seen me is as if he's seen God.
Whoever sees me has seen Haq. This is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. See, so there are these. Does God ever say, does God in the Quran, not in Hadith, ever explain the same truth from the other direction?
When the tree says, "Inni ana Allah,"
How about
Atiullah and
Atiullah,
Rasulullah.
Ma ramaita is lakin Allah harama. You did not throw when you threw. It was Allah who threw. Oh, it's a paradox. You did not throw when you threw. It was Allah who threw. Well, this is called ittihad. You could call that unity or identification. God is identifying the great consciousness of his prophet, who receives his revelation and now takes it to another level by explaining that he is acting through him, which we pick up in the Hadith, فَبِي يَسْمَى وَبِي يُبْصِرْ moving from perceptive faculties to the body itself. So if God takes possession of all things, in fact, as we said last time, he says, wal awalu wal akharu wal zahiru wal batin. He is the first and the last, and he is the outer and the inner. Now the theologians, they don't want you to come to these frightening conclusions, which is just that he says what he means, God says what he means. And they say, oh no, they're going to keep this separation. We should keep the separation. And at the same time, we should understand that we are like these trees. We are different, and we are the same as God. Our existence is God's existence. And yet, we are not, we are places for the divine names to manifest, you see? So we are God and we are not God at the same time.